Let's talk about toxic traits. Now, toxic has become a favorite buzzword online and on TV shows. I see it all over the place where this is toxic and that is toxic. But you know, being part of 12-step fellowships for several years, we've talked about toxic things for a very long time. We just have a different name for them. We call them character defects. See, we all have character defects. Whether you're in recovery from some sort of substance or not, you have character defects. There are things like wanting more of your fair share of security, for sex, for prestige, for money, any of those things. Things that we have natural, God-given desires for, but we just let our emotions and our desire to have those things just run amok. You know, I've always had a need to have people talk to me, to pay attention to me. And, you know, even when I was a little kid, you know, and if you wouldn't listen to me, I would get louder. And, you know, I'm in my 40s now and I still do the same thing. You know, I'm sitting here by myself and I'm talking really loud. But it's something that I'm aware of. And what I wanted to kind of bring out to all of you that, you know, that you may not have thought of before is that these character defects, they're not just going to go away. They're not going to just get better on their own. You have to do something about them. And we know when we come into recovery groups, we hand God the big stuff. Like, obviously, like, hey, if I'm a drug addict, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a sex addict, you know, God, take this from me. But see, it's those character defects, those toxic traits that we have, those are the things that we still hold on to. Well, why? Because that's how we relate to the world. That's what we know. That's what we're comfortable with. And we just seem to refuse, or to, at the very best, be very reluctant holding on to them. We don't want God to take those sorts of things. But if we are honest with ourselves, with another person, and with Him, talking about God, He is faithful to remove those character defects. Now, some of them He'll remove right away, and others, it's a little bit at a time. Just like they say, it's like peeling an onion. You know, you got one layer at a time, just coming off and coming off. But if you deny that they're there, or you deny that it's causing some sort of problem, or if you deny that you can be rid of them, then you never will. You'll continue to hold on to them. So what toxic traits do you have? What character defects do you have? And if you say none, then lying is one of them, because we all have some toxic traits. You know, one of my favorite scriptures that talks about, you know, this old identity, this old person that we were versus the new person that we are is Galatians 2:20. It says, I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life that I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave Himself for me. I'm no longer who I was. I no longer relate to the world as I once did. But there's more. There's always more. You go down to the very next verse, it says, for I do not frustrate the grace of God, because if righteousness cometh by the law, then Christ is dead in vain. And when we're talking about the law here in connection with this last verse, we're really talking about our self-effort and our own self-righteousness. See, that's why I said when we hand God those really big character defects, we hand God those things that we know that we can't do anything about, we still hold on to these other things. We still think that we can be righteous by the law, that we can do something and that we can overcome all these other things, but God, here, you take this one. So what is the solution? The solution is to give Him everything. And you know, you may not be able to do that fully at first. I haven't been. But we give Him a little bit at a time because we know that He's faithful and we know that we can trust Him. And furthermore, we see how faithful He has been removing and dealing with these bigger defects. So we know that we can trust Him with those smaller ones, even the ones that we cherish. So get down with a piece of paper, you know, talk with another friend and start looking at who you are as a person. Look at some of the things that have you been through in your life and see where you do have some toxic traits. See where you do have some character defects that you've still been holding on to, and trust that God is faithful to deal with those things, but only if you recognize them and that you are willing to let them go.